Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. It has been a while, hasn't it? I have been on vacation. I am so glad to be back with you guys. We have a big show. We're going to cover a lot of things, including some NFL news. We're going to start off with that. Jordan Love, has come out and said that he is not going to practice with the team until he gets a brand new contract. We'll talk about what kind of contract he can expect to get, as well as if he deserves to get another contract, his whole situation with the Packers right now. And then we're going to go into some more quarterback conversations in the second segment. We're going to go over the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL that need to have a great season. They're in a prove-it year. This is kind of do or die for them. We're going to talk about those top 5 guys and give you a ranking. Then we're going to move into some basketball talk. Team USA is struggling a little bit. Actually, currently with 2 minutes left to go in a game with Germany, they are only up 3. They were losing heading into that into the fourth quarter here, and they just came off a 1-point win against South Sudan, a team with no NBA players. We will talk about what that game means, what this current game going on right now between the U.S. and Germany means as the U.S. prepares for the Olympics right around the corner. And then we're going to close off our show with baseball. The All-Star break is gone. It has come and gone. Now we're going to talk about some second half predictions, right? We have a much clearer view of what the MLB landscape is looking like. We know we have a much better idea of how rosters are. We're going to save some deadline talk for later on in the week, as that is just 8 days away from now. The MLB trade deadline is. So that's going to start to ramp up more and more. But we're going to do some AL and NL predictions. So stick around for all of that. But remember, before we get into the Jordan Love situation, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw it in the chat. Go and throw it in the comments. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. I hope everybody had a great weekend. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show today in the NFL. Up north with the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. Jordan Love, obviously, is a very interesting case when it comes to quarterbacks, right? He comes in and he's drafted in the first round. Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Fame quarterback, is still there. He wasn't happy. It eventually drives Aaron Rodgers and the Packers apart. You can draw similarities to when Aaron Rodgers himself was drafted and they had, future Hall of Famer Brett Favre on the roster. So, this is something that the Packers do, and so far it seems like it's worked. In one full season of action, Jordan Love has been phenomenal, right? You want to talk about a great quarterback. You look at his stats from last season. Again, in his first full season at starting quarterback, right? This first time we've seen him play a full season. He was drafted back in 2020, so 4 years in, he finally gets his shot. He throws for 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, right? He has a top 10 QBR. He has the 7th most passing yards, the 2nd most passing touchdowns. He is coming off a phenomenal year, right? And now he wants to get paid. If you remember back before the season started last year, he signed a cheap 2-year extension, gave the Packers a little more leeway if they wanted to see more from him this year. But it's a team-friendly deal. He's making $13 million a year right now as a 2-year extension. That is set to expire after this season. Jordan Love is looking to get an extension. And all the reports out of Packers training camp are saying, yes, absolutely, we're here to give him an extension. And as of right now, where it stands, there's no reason for anyone. There's no reason for anyone in the Packers or anyone in Jordan Love's side to think that they shouldn't get this deal done, right? Because look at what he did last season. Look at what he did last season, right? He was statistically up there with literally every other quarterback in the league after a slow start, he really turned it around. We saw what he did in the playoffs against a good secondary in the Cowboys, absolutely demolishing them there. It was just a great performance. He showed up in the biggest moments, and he played great. He played great football. Now, people are putting him up in top 10 conversations, and we can have that conversation. I personally do not think that Jordan Love is a top 10 quarterback yet. 1 year in, one season in, things can change, right? But we're looking at some of these guys that probably are at around the same level as him that have gotten paid this offseason, right? You in recent memory, you have Trevor Lawrence becoming the tied for the highest paid quarterback in the NFL at 55 year, right? You have Jared Goff, who was paid $53 million a year earlier this season, earlier this offseason, in a contract extension with the Lions, right? He's kind of in that same area. Now, I'd put Jordan Love personally in between those two guys. I think he's better than Jared Goff, worse than Trevor Lawrence. The question is he going to fetch $50 million? And we've talked a lot about this, right? How I think we're starting to get to the upper limits of what teams are comfortable just saying, whatever, he's a quarterback, throw all the money at him. 50 million, 60 million. I think we're starting to get to that limit, that point where these teams are starting to say, hey, is it really worth it to give this guy that much money? Does he need market resetting money? And if you're going to pay Jordan Love, which I think they should, you have to really, really think, does he deserve $50 million? And you're looking at his numbers from last season, and again, he proved it last year, right? He did. He did a great job. I want to see more. And I know they need to get this deal done before then because you don't want him hitting free agency. That's just going to drive his price up more, as well as waiting. More quarterbacks will sign again. That'll just drive his price up more. That is not what you want if you are the Packers. This is a deal you kind of have to bite the bullet, right? And he's a guy that's going to join that $50 million club. Right now, there's just, 7 quarterbacks that are a part of that. Trevor Lawrence, we just touched on. Joe Burrow, who had that largest contract that Trevor Lawrence tied. Jared Goff, who signed this offseason. Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts, right? Then you get into the 40s. And if I was paying him by his value, right? Obviously quarterbacks get that quarterback tax. You're not re-signing a quarterback for, or at least a top quarterback for less than $40 million, right? No top quarterback is going to be like, hey, Daniel Jones got $40 million. I'm going to take less than him. They're going to, that's going to be like the base, right? Of what you're going to expect out of, as a quarterback that you're going to pay, right? $40 million. And that's fine, right? Jordan Love is a guy that I think could probably fetch low 50s. If he sets that new contract, if he breaks that Trevor Lawrence contract, that Joe Burrow contract, that's when I start to have questions. This is not a guy that I think deserves to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Now, can he develop into a guy that does deserve to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL? Absolutely he can. And like he proved last season, he still has a lot to grow, and he was still improving over the year. So you do want to lock him down now. I think this deal is going to come in around 50. Somewhere around Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson kind of money. Both of the 51, 52, Justin Herbert, 52 and a half. If I had to guess, he's going to get more than Jared Goff, but I don't know if he's going to get as much as Trevor Lawrence. Now, at this point, we're splitting hairs, right? We're talking between 53 and 55 million, right? At that point, hey, what's an extra million every year, right? That's probably what the agents are saying. What are you going to do with that extra million? That's not even that's barely the vet minimum. Who are you going to sign at that point? But 54 to 56, maybe he resets this market. It's going to be weird if Jordan Love resets that market. And all these other quarterbacks are waiting for him to do it, right? All reports say that they're close to getting it done. GM Brian Gutekunst of the Green Bay Packers has said, hey, we're not too worried. He's still at camp. He's just not practicing. And they say they're close on getting a deal done. So I do expect this deal to get done before the season starts. This isn't going to be that big of a story, but I do think that that he might reset the market, which is kind of crazy. And we'll get into the implications of that if he does end up resetting the market. But if I'm the Packers, I'm sitting at around 50. Maybe they can get just because it's only one season. And I know, and I'm not going to give him that Patrick Mahomes 10-year contract. I'm going to give him, something around four 4 years, 4 years, 50 million with an out after 2 years. Front load that guaranteed money, make it something along those lines. Yeah. 4 years, 220, $54 million a year, front load that. That should be enough. He has all the guaranteed money he needs, over $100 million guaranteed there. And the Packers have an out if he ends up regressing, because we've only seen one season of this, so we have no idea what we really are going to see out of Jordan Love. It's going to be interesting. I do think he deserves to get paid though, and at the end of the day, he's probably going to end up resetting the market, which out of all the quarterbacks that could have reset the market this offseason, uh, Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, all these guys that signed contracts, big contracts, right? Throw Baker Mayfield in that mix as well, I guess. This is him and Trevor Lawrence are the guys that I can understand resetting the market. Maybe Tua if he signs, but that's a whole nother story. We'll actually get into some more quarterback talk, Tua as well. We're going to talk about, in the next segment, the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL that need to perform next season. It's a prove-it year for them. It's a do-or-die season. If they don't, they're all but out of the NFL at this point. Maybe they get a backup role somewhere, but this is the year they have to prove to everyone that they belong as a starter. They belong in the NFL as one of those top 32 guys. So stick around for that. We did a top 5 list here. Again, I appreciate everybody. Well, it's been a while, but we'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just talked all about Jordan Love and his contract disputes. He has officially said he is not going to practice with the Green Bay Packers until he gets a brand new contract, most likely market resetting money. If he gets that $50 million, which if I'm Jordan Love, I'm honestly not accepting less than 50, just because you have all the leverage right now, but you do want to get this deal done before the season starts. That way you don't lose any of that leverage, because right now you're at the top of where you probably will be for a very long time. But anyway, at least that's guaranteed. In this segment, we are going to finish up our NFL coverage. We're going to finish up our QB coverage, actually. We're going to talk a little bit about the top 5 quarterbacks that are in prove-it seasons. That means quarterbacks that if A, perform poorly this season, they are out of a starting job. They are out of the NFL, maybe. These are quarterbacks that need to have good seasons if they want to continue their career. We're going to talk all about We have a top 5 list and more. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you have to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to add, go ahead and throw it in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to finish up our QB coverage for the day, our NFL coverage for the day, before we get into a new NFL division for this week. Pick back right up where we left off. We still have 6 divisions to go for predicting. But which quarterbacks have do or die seasons? Again, we have a top 5 list for you here. Again, do or die season. What does that mean? If these quarterbacks perform poorly, they're most likely out of the NFL. They're most likely out of starting jobs. Maybe they go get off of their reputation a, backup gig somewhere, but this is their last shot. This is their shot to prove that they belong as a starter in the NFL, and this is probably the season that they have to do it. So at number 5 here, we have, again, like I said, it is a top 5 list. At number 5 here, we have Geno Smith, and I know that might sound a little surprising to some people because Geno Smith has been really good, and I personally don't think that he needs to have a prove-it year here, which is why he's down at number 5 below the rest of these guys on the list who I truly do believe need to have this prove-it year. Geno Smith is here at 5. He is already kind of on the hot seat in Seattle, right? They go in and they trade for Sam Howell from Washington, and people are saying he should start over Geno Smith, which is kind of absurd. Geno Smith has been awesome, and there's no reason to usurp him or take him out of that starting spot, but there's already a lot of pressure to get rid of a guy like Geno Smith, and you don't want to have that pressure grow. The more the public goes, especially with a new coaching staff, a new GM, a new front office, really, that didn't bring you in, this is something that, you have to knock all the noise out. So I have Geno Smith here at 5 for quarterbacks that need to perform well, have or do or die seasons right now. At number 4 on the list, we have Russell Wilson. And this spot really could go to the Steelers quarterback room in general, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. But I put Russell Wilson here at number 4 over Justin Fields just because Justin Fields is young, right? And there's still a lot of, hey, maybe there's potential here. Russell Wilson is a guy who's older. He's past his prime, definitely. We saw a drop-off when he left Seattle. In Denver, he was mid at best last season with Sean Payton when he comes in. Now we have... Excuse me. We still alive? Yeah, we are. Okay. Apologies. I got a pop-up on my screen. So, Russell Wilson is here at number 4. Like I was saying, if he doesn't have a good year, this is one of those guys that might not even get a backup role. And I know that's one of those things that's a little crazy to say, but he's on a 1-year prove-it deal, right? This is a very clearly a prove-it deal. He signs it. He's got plenty of guaranteed money coming in from the Broncos after his contract was essentially bought out. He goes and signs for almost veteran minimum with the Steelers. There's no guarantee he even makes it through this season. If he performs poorly, you have all the pressure of not just having a full season. You have to play good starting in week 1 and prove that you are the better quarterback than Justin Fields, who is right behind you, who is in a very similar situation. Like I said, this number 4 spot can go to the entire Steelers quarterback room, but Russell Wilson seems like he's in bigger danger of being out of the NFL completely if he has a poor season, rather than Justin Fields, who feels like he might have one more shot left in him. 3rd time's the charm. This is the 3rd time for Russell Wilson. He has to get it right here. I don't know if he will, but he is number 4 on the list of quarterbacks that need to be good this season. At number 3, we have Tua Tagovailoa, and this one, again, he is in conversations to get a $50 million contract right now, Tua is, right? And him needing to have a good season is along the same lines of we just talked about it with Jordan Love. Jordan Love is on the ascension. We just saw Tua stay healthy for 1 year and put up the numbers he did, but it wasn't like he was doing that, right? It kind of felt like that was the offense that was built around him, right? With Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the running backs that are super fast in Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. All of these guys, it's like a track meet over there in Miami, and it's a great team, great weapons all around him. If Tua needs to prove to get the contract, this is why it's a prove it year for him. This is basically, hey, he's basically playing this season for a $55 million contract, maybe even a $60 million contract. If he's able to replicate what he did last season, if he's able to stay healthy and do what he did last season, which you look at the weapons around him, like I said, if he stays healthy, there's no reason to assume that he will have a bad season. This is something that he needs to stay healthy. The offensive line took a step back. He needs to be able to learn to make some decisions on his own rather than just going to the first read. That's been a criticism with Tua. He just needs to read a defense better, and that's the hardest part of playing quarterback, right? Making all those throws and then also reading the defense as it changes. But this is a prove it year for him, and he is essentially playing for $50 million right now. And there's not really any other way to say it other than a prove it year. $50 million is a contract season for him. He's either gonna perform and get paid, or he is going to get the minimum somewhere to be a backup. Maybe not the minimum, but he's going to have trouble finding a job if he has a poor performance this season with the wealth of weapons he has with the Miami Dolphins. And number 2, we go to the opposite, someone without the wealth of weapons. We have Daniel Jones of the New York Giants, and we know he signed a 4-year contract 2 years ago, right? But the way that the contract is built, the Giants have an out after this season. And if you've been keeping up with Hard Knocks, watching the Giants, they're really trying to say, oh, it's not Daniel Jones's fault. He just didn't have any help around him. This is not his fault. This is his last season in New York if he performs poorly. Now, he can buy himself another year, possibly 2. It's going to be really hard. He needs to take a step that has honestly never been done by a quarterback this late in their career, coming off of a season-ending torn ACL that he suffered early on last season. He should be ready to go, but it's not looking good for Daniel Jones. This is play for your career. This is why he's ranked ahead of Tua here. This is a guy who's playing for his career in Daniel Jones. He needs to perform, and again, not all of these guys are going to be able to perform to the level that you expect them to as a starting quarterback. But he sits here at number 2. Daniel Jones needs to have a great season. So far, 5-2. We have Geno, Russell Wilson, Tua Tagovailoa, and Daniel Jones. And the number 1 spot, a quarterback that needs to have a good season. And it might seem a little early to some of you guys, but Bryce Young is my number 1 quarterback here. This isn't anything as dramatic as he's leaving the league. This isn't anything as dramatic as, he's not going to get a contract. He's going to be on the team. He's going to be on the Panthers. But this Panthers team has done a lot this offseason to make it better. Last year was bad. This is the year when you're looking at young quarterbacks. Generally, it's the rule of 3, right? If they're not ready by year 3, if they're not starting to show signs in year 2, it's probably not going to happen. Now, there's always outliers, right? Josh Allen, for example, outlier, right? But Bryce Young is not Josh Allen. We can sit here and be honest about that. They go out and they get weapons. They go out and get him receivers. They upgrade that offensive line. He needs to at least show something. Now, this isn't the traditional prove it, but Bryce Young, to avoid being a bust, obviously they give up basically 2 first overall pick for him. They give up Caleb Williams for him, and that's a tough pill to swallow if you're the Panthers. David Tepper is a guy that, as we've seen, has not been very patient with coaches, with players. They need to make the improvements now. Bryce Young needs to show up And he doesn't have to be elite, but he has to prove that he belongs in the NFL. He can't be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league like he was last season. He is number one on the do or die list for quarterbacks for me. Let me know if you agree, disagree with anything I said here. I'll go through the list one more time before we move off of this segment. Geno Smith at 5, Russell Wilson at 4, Tua at 3, Daniel Jones at 2, and Bryce Young at 1. In our next segment, we are going to leave the world of football until tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about Team USA. They've had a couple of close calls, 2 close calls in a row now, actually, as their game with Germany just wrapped up. They were able to avoid a loss, but they beat South Sudan by 1 point. They almost lose it. They let South Sudan get to the rim on them in that last possession. Now, Germany, who is a better team than South Sudan, takes them to the limit again. We'll talk about what we learned about this U.S. team, what this means as they head into the Olympics coming up in just about a week from now. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking all about the top 5 quarterbacks that need to perform this season if they want to continue to be a NFL quarterback in the future. Number 5 was Geno Smith. Number 4 was Russell Wilson. Number 3 was Tua. Number 2 was Daniel Jones. And number 1 was Bryce Young. We also talked about the contract situation, the contract dispute between Jordan Love and the Packers. Jordan Love says he's not going to practice until he has a new contract. So go back and listen to my thoughts on all of that. In this segment, we are going to talk a little bit about the U.S. men's basketball team. They've had a couple of close calls in a row now. Even if you go back to the game against Serbia, they started off slow before they eventually came back and dominated. We'll talk about what this means, the South Sudan game, this Germany game that just finished as we were finishing up our last segment, which they were able to pull through with a victory. We'll talk all about that and more in just a second, but before we get into that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into some basketball talk. I guess not NBA talk. Team USA, international basketball talk. Obviously Team USA is stacked, right? There's no other way to put it. This team has an argument to be the greatest team ever assembled in the history of basketball. And when you watch them click on all gears, right? When you watch them play their best basketball, you say, hey, this is the best basketball team on the planet. And we saw it a little bit against South Sudan, right? For those who are unaware, the U.S. is doing pre-Olympic trial runs, just showdown games. Uh, they played the fourth and the fifth one over the weekend. They played South Sudan, and they just finished up their fifth one against Spain. Both of those games did not go the way that you want to for Team USA, and we've known, right? We've known for a while that the world is starting to catch up to the US in basketball. That's why this team was assembled. That's why LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, all these guys, Jason Tatum. I could list this whole team, and I still wouldn't. I still really couldn't put it into how great this team is, just full of individual greatness, right? That's the reason that they formed the Avengers of basketball teams, right? They wanted to prove, hey, we still run the world, right? Spain just won the FIBA championship. Germany, I apologize, is who they just played and who just won the FIBA championship, right? Germany is a very good team, right? They have NBA talent. They just took the US to that's the second game in a row. I want to focus more on the South Sudan game, though. They ended up pulling it out at the end. It might have been, if they lost, the biggest upset in the history of basketball, right? South Sudan were 43-point dogs. If you want to get to the betting side of things, the U.S. was supposed to win by 43 points. That's what Vegas said. That's what the bookmakers said. That's what the odd makers said. 43 points. They end up squeaking by 1 point. And a lot of that you can say, hey, it was a lucky shooting night. South Sudan shot the lights out. They shot the roof off of the building. They could not miss, seemingly, in that first half, South Sudan. They were that good. The U.S. was down 14 at halftime, 44-58 to South Sudan, a team that has no starting NBA players, a couple of G League guys, but that's about it. This is a country that, as they were saying in the post game, they were talking about this game, how much it means to them. Right, basketball is huge in the U.S., but it's growing outside. South Sudan is a country that it's a new country, and it's a country that's still dealing with the effects of its civil war when it was formed in the last couple years. This is a huge moment for them. Sports are huge moments for countries, and beating maybe the best basketball team ever assembled would have been insane. They took them to the buzzer. Like I said, they were dominating the entire first half. Now the U.S. came back, took a lead in the fourth quarter, but credit to South Sudan, they didn't just give up and come and fade away. They stayed in. They stayed in this game. They continued to fight. They had a lead in this game with 20 seconds left, right? JT Thor hits a corner three-pointer in transition with 20 seconds left to give a 1-point lead to South Sudan, 100-99, before LeBron James does his thing, gets a layup, which is another thing. We got to see, there were lots of questions, right? Who is the guy on Team USA? Anthony Edwards says, I'm the number one option. With a team as stacked as this, where you have 10 number one options throughout the NBA, who is going to be the guy they turn to when they need a big shot, when they need to make the game winner? And at least in this South Sudan game, the answer was LeBron James, right? And that's really cool to see, right? We talk about LeBron a lot, right? Because LeBron James is LeBron James. He's a megastar. He's a world superstar. He's a celebrity, right? He's not just an athlete. He's a celebrity, right? And that's the kind of status LeBron James has because of how good he's been for how long. He's 40 years old. He is leading a team of all-stars. He is leading, again, potentially the greatest the greatest basketball team ever assembled at 40 years old. And he is the number one option, at least from what we've seen in that South Sudan game when it came down to the one possession, we need a basket, we go to LeBron James, which is really, really cool to see. I think that is really cool to see as a basketball fan. But what this means as they head into the Olympics, right? That's the bigger question. It doesn't matter if they lose this game. This game is just to build camaraderie, to build that relationship, to build the team chemistry so you can be more successful in the playoffs. For a team like the US that doesn't ever play together, this is a moment for them to figure out how to play together, how to do their lineups, how to do their rotations with 10, 12 guys that should be that are the number one option on any other team, right? 12 guys, some of them just aren't going to get the minutes they deserve. It's tough to do, and it's a hard job for to do a 12-man rotation, right? It really is. You have to get these guys in because of how good they are, but you need to, play winning basketball at the same time. So they're still figuring out. There's the growing pains. But the Olympics are around the corner. They can't continue to play like this. The U.S. is this white whale. They are the prize that everyone is coming for, right? They need to be prepared to get the best of everybody. Everyone is circling this game on their calendar, and the US can't look past anyone because there's going to be nights like this one against South Sudan where they shoot the lights out. And, if this was against, say, France, right? France, Canada, one of these top contenders outside of the US, right? And South Sudan, if we're being honest, is probably not going to make it deep into the Olympics this season, right? And it's a great story that they almost beat the US here, but they're probably not going to make it deep into these Olympics, if we're being honest, right? But imagine if instead of South Sudan, you're down 14 at half to France. You're down 14 at half to Canada. You're down 14 at half to Germany. You're down 14 at half to Spain. What are you going to do then? Are they going to be able to turn it on and make that comeback like they did against South Sudan? This is not a position that they need to be in. This has to be motivation for them to come out and give their best every night, because this is a team that if they lose, it will be humiliating. It really will. This is a team that has no excuse to not bring home the gold. They brought the super team together. They built the Avengers of basketball, right? They cannot lose. If they lose, it will be embarrassing for the entire country, for the entirety of U.S. basketball, and it's not going to be easy. This is going to be the toughest gold medal to win for USA basketball, maybe ever. We talk about these stacked teams. Serbia, with Serbia, they played us tough. We're going to play them. They're in our group at the beginning of the Olympics. But these are single elimination games, right? These are single elimination games that are going to happen in the quarterfinals. These are single elimination games that are going to happen in the semifinals. These are single elimination games, and the U.S. needs to show up because, like we've seen, one hot shooting night from a team like South Sudan can almost sink them, and the players don't sound worried. And if I'm the players on that team, I'm not, because this is the best team out there. Undoubtedly. There is no argument that there is a team currently on Earth that is better than this basketball team. Just, there isn't. You can say that there's teams that could make it tough, but this is the best team. Hands down, straight up, best team, period. That doesn't mean they're invincible. That doesn't mean that they can't lose. There's a reason only one team in the history of sports has gone undefeated, right? The best team loses sometimes, right? This is why the best record ever in the NBA didn't end up raising the championship. It's not the only reason why. There's a lot of factors, LeBron James being a big one of those. But, this is a team that isn't guaranteed a medal, and they need to get in that mindset. They really do. They need to get into the mindset that this medal is not guaranteed for them, no matter how stacked of a roster they have. It is going to be really, really tough to win this gold medal because the rest of the world is catching up. It's only going to continue to get harder. So I'm excited to see if they're able to bounce back after two straight tough games. Again, they beat Germany today by 3 points. They beat South Sudan by 1. They were losing heading into the fourth quarter today. This is not how you need to play if you're US basketball. Let me know what you think. Is the US a lock for gold? I'm a little concerned right now. I really am, because I don't feel like Steve Kerr knows what he's doing with these rotations, and he's running out of time. I don't think that the US is really trying their hardest, which they need to start doing. They need to start playing like a team instead of just doing a bunch of iso ball. But anyway, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to move into the world of baseball after this. That's right. The All-Star break has come and gone. We are going to spend the next 2 segments doing final predictions. We did predictions at the beginning. We're going to do predictions here at the halfway point, see what's changed, do a little look around the MLB as we prepare for the second half of the season and the race to October starts to heat up. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about my concerns with the USA basketball team, that stacked team that has the best basketball players on the planet on it, some of them, maybe not all of them, but this is the best basketball team currently on the planet. They almost lost to South Sudan. They almost lost to Germany today. We talked about why that's concerning in single elimination format particularly, and why they need to start to lock in as the playoffs are right around the corner. But anyway, we also talked about the NFL earlier in the show. We talked about Jordan Love's contract dispute. Jordan Love says he's not going to practice until he gets a new contract. His contract is over after this year. He signed a 2-year extension last year. It runs out this season. It's a team-friendly deal. He's not making too much money, but now he's looking to make some serious money after turning in a top 10 season in the NFL. Not sure if he's a top 10 quarterback, but definitely was a top 10 quarterback season last year. We also talked about the top 5 quarterbacks that need to have a good season if they want to continue their career, if they want to continue their career trajectory as a starter, or at least as a for sure starter in the NFL. So go and take a look at that list if you are curious. In this segment and the next segment, we're going to move into the world of baseball. We're going to talk about the second half of the season as it sets up. We've gotten a couple games into it now. The All-Star break has come and gone. We're going to start in the AL here. We're going to talk about some predictions for the rest of the season, some playoff spots, and what the whole outlook is of the AL and the NL. Just get a little layout so we know what to expect heading in to the second half of the MLB season. But before we get into that, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or leave a tip or a message at the website at gsmcpodcast.net. It should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to add, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we're going to get into the MLB here, starting off in the AL. In the AL has been very interesting, right? There's a lot of storylines here as we hit the second half, as we're just a couple series as we're one series into the second half of the season, with the All-Star break officially passing us. And we'll start in the East, right? The East at the top of it has been a battle between the New York Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles. The Yankees had a chokehold on this division, and it really wasn't as big of a chokehold as you would expect. for a team like the Yankees that were playing out of their mind with two of the best hitters on the planet in Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, the pitching staff maybe being the best in the league. The pitching staff's kind of fallen off a cliff, and because of that, they've taken a step back. They're a game and a half behind the Baltimore Orioles, who have had one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, to pair with one of the best hitting cores in all of baseball. The Baltimore Orioles are awesome. They have maybe the best farm system as well. They are stacked. They might make a move at the deadline, which is, just 8 days from now. We'll talk more about the deadline as it gets closer, as more moves begin to, lock in, settle up, and we get an idea of what the landscape of baseball will look like after the deadline, or as we hit the deadline. But right now, the Orioles are on top of that division. It's 1.5 games. These two teams are going to continue to go back and forth. I personally believe the Orioles are going to take this division. I think the Yankees are great, but unless they add big at the deadline, and the Yankees need to add big at the deadline, because as much as we want to talk about that offense, it really is just kind of two guys. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge are about as close as you can get to a two-man wrecking crew in MLB, right? It's really hard to be a successful organization when you just have two hitters. Go ask the Angels about that, right? You have Mike Trout, you have Shohei Ohtani. They couldn't make the playoffs, right? Two of the best players in the history of baseball, right there. Two of the top 10 players ever, maybe. That might be a little bit of a stretch there, honestly. Sorry. I got a little carried away. But two of the top 10 players in the modern era, definitely. On the same team, and they couldn't make the playoffs, right? And the Yankees are able to be successful with that. That's because the pitching staff has been really good. But they need to get some offense, because I don't see Juan Soto or Aaron Judge slowing down. But you can't reasonably expect to win a 7-game series, a 5-game series, if you just have two guys. That's it. You need to have offense coming from other places in the lineup. And I expect them to go out and add a bat at the deadline. But as of right now, I'm keeping the Orioles on the top of this division, the Yankees in second. We'll get to the wild card stuff in a second, or at least once we get through the divisions in the AL. The Central Division here is really it's kind of a 3-horse race. I mean, as good as the Guardians have been, and they have been awesome, they've locked that up. The Twins and the Royals are within striking distance still. They're both 5 games back. Now, the Royals have been slipping. Now, they've been good out of the deadline. They've been good at the All-Star break. But they were slipping a little bit beforehand. The Twins have just been kind of consistently good since the disastrous start to the 2024 MLB season. But the Twins and the Royals here are within striking distance here of the Guardians. So the Guardians can't really let up. And the Guardians are a team that they're not outstanding at anything outside of bullpen. Their bullpen is outstanding. But outside of that, the rest of it is just great, which is a great way to build a team, right? You have a great hitting core. You have a good starting pitching staff. You have an elite bullpen. And that is a great way to build a team. It's going to be tough when you get to the playoffs, though. And I expect the Guardians to hold on in this Central Division. But the Twins could give them a fight. The Royals, if they're actually able to turn it around, again, 7-3 in their last 10. Won their last 3. They just swept their first series. It is going to be tough for these teams to catch the Guardians, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. The last division to go over, the West, and this is crazy. The Astros, as of today, or as of yesterday, I guess, they officially caught up to they officially caught up to the Seattle Mariners. And the Mariners are interesting, right? The Mariners might have the best pitching staff in baseball, but at the same time, they have the worst offense in baseball. Julio Rodriguez just goes down with an injury as of yesterday, and that does not help their cause. They designate for assignment Ty France. This is not an easy situation to be in for the Mariners. The Astros are back where we expected them, and nobody really thought they were out after how bad they started this season. They're starting to get healthy. The bats are starting to go again. This is the Astros team we were used to. This is the Astros team that has made it to the ALCS 7 times in a row. This is the Astros team that is a pseudo dynasty right now, and this is what we expect. The Mariners are doing everything they can to stay at the top. They also need to add a bat at the deadline. It's going to be interesting to see who they get at the trade deadline. That's going to determine the rest of their season and their wild card race, but there's no reason to believe the way the Astros are playing that they do not end up taking this division, the West. And then we've got an interesting discussion with the wild card. Right now, as the wild card stands, it's the Yankees, who probably should be a lock for that wild card 1 spot. The Twins, the Royals, the Red Sox, the Mariners are all the Twins and the Royals currently have the 2 and 3 wild card spot. The Red Sox are a game back, and the Mariners are 2.5. If any of those teams is going to sneak in, it's going to be the Mariners if they figure out their offense, because they have the pitching, and pitching can carry you a long way. That's why they've won 53 games. The Royals have been slumping a little bit. If I had to give a prediction right now, which I'm going to give you, the wild card is going to look like Yankees wild card 1, Twins wild card 2, Mariners wild card 3. I think the Mariners will be able to figure that out. Maybe that's my bias because I love pitching. I don't believe in this Red Sox team. Maybe we see the Rays claw all the way back. They're only 5 games out right now, but we'll have to see. It's going to be an exciting race to October in the AL. And don't even get me started on the NL. The NL is going to be insane. All but 2 teams are alive there. It's going to be a fun race. And we're going to break all of that down. Everything, all the wildness, craziness going on in the NL in just a second. Coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone over a lot of things. The last thing we talked about was the AL predictions as we head into the final section of the MLB season. The All-Star break is officially over. We have just a couple days until the trade deadline. We're doing predictions as we reset ourselves into the MLB season, as well as a lot of USA basketball talk. They have had a couple of close calls in a row. They need to get their act together before they get embarrassed on the world stage. They built a super team. This is a team that has no excuses to lose. I'm a little bit concerned, if I'm being completely honest with you. This is not a good look for Team USA. Although it is good that they're able to rally and have that talent shine through. Then we talked a lot of football. Jordan Love looking for a new contract. Top 5 quarterbacks that need to perform if they want to stay starting quarterbacks in the NFL next season. It is a very, very important time in sports, right? Baseball is in full swing. The NFL season is just starting to show up. We had the Texans report to camp. That means the NFL offseason is officially over. We are officially in NFL season territory. very, very exciting. And the Olympics are right around the corner. So much to talk about. But to close out our show today, we're going to do a little bit more baseball. We are going to finish up the NL. We're going to finish up our second half predictions, our reset of the MLB season to know where we stand, this time in the NL. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw it in the comments. Go and throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to finish up our second half MLB predictions here, going with the NL. The NL is maybe even crazier than the AL. We just did a whole breakdown in our last segment, so go and check that out if you're curious what I had to say. We're going to do the same format. We're going to start off with the division, starting off in the East, and this one is kind of easy. Right now, the Philadelphia Phillies are at the top of that division. The Braves are 8.5 games back. You have the surging New York Mets, only 12.5. The Nationals at 16.5, and the Marlins, one of two teams in this whole NL that are basically all but eliminated at this point. 28 games back at number 5 in that division. This division should be the Phillies. They're the best or second best team in the NL, maybe in the entire MLB. Maybe. No. You'll have to wait for the power rankings for that, but those come out every Friday. So Phillies, this is their division. The Braves are too hurt. On paper, this Braves roster is maybe the best in the entirety of the MLB, but they've lost their two best players. Their number one pitcher, Spencer Strider, who is so much fun to watch, is one of the last true aces in the league, and Ronald Acuna Jr., reigning MVP, hurts his knee. He's out for the season again, which sucks. But they've lost their best two players, and they're still in playoff contention, really solidly in playoff contention, which is what is really impressive to me. And that proves how good the Braves are here. They're going to add at the deadline, probably nothing huge, just like they did when they won the World Series, right? They're going to add, try and replace Acuna, get some pitching help as well. But this is the Phillies division. The Centrals is a little more interesting, right? The Brewers are at the top. They've been at the top for a while. You have the Cardinals 5 games back, the Pirates 7 games back, the Cubs 10, and the Reds 10.5, right? All of these teams are in playoff contention. The Cardinals have been surging recently. They had a tough start to the season. They started off really slow. They're starting to claw their way back. The Brewers have been solid, right? They've been solid. They haven't really let their foot off the gas, but the Cardinals are starting to catch up to them, and they need to be careful because this Cardinals team is good. I think the Cardinals might even overtake the Brewers here at that number 1 spot in the Central. I'm going to keep it with the Brewers for now, just because the Brewers have been able to do it all season, but the Cardinals, look out for them. The Pirates are kind of Paul Skeens, that pitching staff in a shell. If they're not going to add at the deadline, they're not in a position to add. So I'm not really too worried about them. And I think the Cubs and the Reds, while they can still get back into stuff here in the division, their path to the playoffs is much more in the wild card realm. So we'll see what happens there. This is the Brewers and the Cardinals division right now. I'm keeping the Brewers at the top. The Cardinals have a real case, though. And out in the West, again, this is going to be a little bit easier. Dodgers. I'm not going to give too much detail here. Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts is not even healthy right now, and they're doing everything they're doing. Dodgers are going to win this division. How it stands right now, though, the Padres and the Diamondbacks are both 8 games back. The Giants are 11, and the Rockies, the other team that are all but out of playoff contention in the NL. The Colorado Rockies are 23 games back at this point. So that's where the divisions stand. As for the wild card, this is where the wildness comes in for the wild card, right? As it stands right now, the Atlanta Braves are wild card 1. They have 2.5 games on wild card 2, St. Louis Cardinals, and the Mets, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres are all tied for that third wildcard spot, a game and a half back of the St. Louis Cardinals, right on their tails. The Pittsburgh Pirates, half a game out of the playoffs. The Giants, 3 games out. The Cubs, 3.5. The Nationals and the Reds, 4 games out of the playoffs. Now, some of these teams are going to be sellers, not going to make a real push. Teams like the Washington Nationals, we've already seen them trade Hunter Harvey. They got a pretty good haul for that. The Cincinnati Reds, I don't think they're going to be sellers. The Cubs might be sellers at this deadline. They have an expensive roster, and it hasn't really worked out. Don't expect the Pirates to be sellers, but I don't think they'll be buyers either. What we're looking at here for the rest of this race, who are the buyers going to be in the NL? Now, the Braves are going to be a buyer. The Cardinals, probably going to be buyers. The Mets are an enigma. I have no idea what the Mets are going to do. Nobody really knows what the Mets are going to do. The Mets are in a constant state of whatever. Magic dust is being thrown at them, right? Grimace throws out a first pitch, a hot dog. You know, it's been a fever dream of a season over there for the Mets. And, you know, I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're probably going to sit pat on this one. I don't know if they're going to do anything. The Diamondbacks, World Series runners-up last season, probably going to be adders. The Padres, definitely going to add. They have already added Luis Arias, so you can already put them in that adding category. Maybe they'll go and take a swing at someone else out there on the market. Giants, I don't think they're going to add. I just don't think this Giants team doesn't seem like it has any direction right now. And it's a tough spot to be because they're just going to be kind of mediocre for the next couple years until they pick a direction. And they're a little late to go full fast rebuild like the Nationals did when they traded Soto and Scherzer and Turner and Schwarber and all of these guys that are now helping great teams win baseball games. But anyway, we're looking at the wild card here. What are we looking at here in the wild card? Pretty simple. The Braves are going to make a wild card. The Cardinals are going to make a wild card. It's the third wild card that is up for grabs. Teams I'm going to eliminate. Obviously, the Marlins and the Rockies. I'm taking the Reds out. They're too inconsistent. They rely too much on not a consistent offense to make a difference. The Nationals are going to be sellers. They are off of the list. The Cubs might be sellers. They are off of the list. The Giants are kind of in a road to nowhere. They're off of the list. The Pirates, kind of sitting there. They're staying on the list. They might be able to squeak in. The Padres, Diamondbacks, Mets, and Pirates. 4 teams for one spot as I see it. The Mets have a lot of magic on their side. The Diamondbacks, the reigning NL champs, are only getting healthier. The Padres have a roster that you would be so disappointed in if they miss the playoffs again. And the Pirates are young. They have Paul Skeens. Now, they might send him down and that might take them out. They are my long shot. I think they could do it, though. I am putting in my number 3 wild card spot. I'm putting in the New York Mets. The Diamondbacks and the Rangers miss out on the playoffs from where I see it right now. The Padres they just can't get it together, at least as far as I see in the future coming up. But the Pirates are a dark horse. Keep an eye out for them. If they keep winning games, they might be able to sneak into that final wild card spot. Bring playoff baseball back to Pittsburgh. But anyway, let me know if you agree, disagree with anything I said here in today's episode. I appreciate all of you guys for sticking around, listening, and talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, July 22nd. I've been off for a while. I'm so glad to be back here. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. You've been listening to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network, and I will see you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.